Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Delvecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author, nsaxtonlopez. And this is a program that we deliver live every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And it is then broadcast on a number of podcast outlets for a replay thereafter. You can also watch the replay on YouTube and Facebook. And by the way, we would love for you to subscribe on YouTube because it helps other people to learn the value and activates the algorithm to show the podcast to other people who are looking for help. So this is a program that takes the learning that Nancy and I received over many, many years, decades, in fact, in Nancy's case, of facilitating pet loss support groups, and brings it now through this medium into a dialogue with you. And we like very much to hear from you. And I'll also let you know that we wrote a book, and it's really the foundation of the information that we share here, and it's available on Amazon. It's called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. As I said, we'd like to dialogue with you. So please send us your questions, your comments, your recommendations for guests for joining us on this podcast. You can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com. You can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com, and that's nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. And you can also support our program through Venmo and through PayPal and through a monthly subscription if you're so inclined. We do this as a labor of love, but of course it can't hurt to receive some support as well. And so that option is available to you. We also like you to know that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society, which is a shelter system located in Springfield, Massachusetts. You can learn more about Dakin by reading a bigger description on the description for these programs. And you can also learn more about Dakin by going to dakinhumane.org. That's DAKINHUMANE.org. I have also been facilitating an online Zoom pet loss support group on the second Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you're very welcome to join that. You RSVP at dakinhumane.org under programs, and there is no cost. So that is an option for you as well. The program runs from 6 to 7:30 every second Tuesday of the month, and it would be great to have you join us if that would be helpful for you. So Nancy, you want to get us started?
Sure. And groups are really nice and important, and even through Zoom. I know it's sometimes better to have actual folks in person, but Zoom, of course, in our day and age, has worked out as best as possible.
Yep.
So we've had quite a few emails and very heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, heartwarming stories. And tonight we're going to talk about two. We're going to talk about Tanya, who wrote in, and Alyssa. Now, Alyssa's is quite detailed, so we're going to hope to get to all of it, but if we don't, we will continue next podcast. However, we're going to start with Tanya, and I'm going to read her email. Thanks for your reply to my message of gratitude on Facebook Messenger. So I guess I did reply. I wanted to make sure I did. I'm listening to episode 56 with teary eyes about the person who just lost the husky. The guilt about not noticing it sooner, not taking it more seriously after the first rebound from that infection really echoed to me. My cat had similar circumstance. He had some kind of urinary blockage, but with some medication and the ultrasound that showed no visible blockage or concern, went on to live for another 6 months, during which he had 2 more vet visits, but that symptom was never discussed again. Then the tumor that was lurking beneath suddenly reared its ugly head, brought on acute kidney failure, and took my cat away. Anyway, he passed after mid-June. I live alone, so he was my rock. my sole companion during all the lockdowns. We had 6 here in Melbourne, Australia. My love and my everything. I was a complete wreck, skipped meals, skipped necessary hygiene, forgot how to live because he was part of my everyday life. I started to become more spiritual, hoping to see him again in his spirit or feel his energy. Then I started seeing signs from him. I was woken up by a sound from my bed, which was like him jumping on it. A few days after he passed, I woke up every night at around 3 to 4 a.m. for no reason, and I was always a deep sleeper. Then I kept seeing a social media post from an animal shelter about a female cat desperately looking for a home. Barely recovered from the grief, I decided to take this cat in, believing that he showed this cat to me and asked me to find the little strength I had left to love and care for another. My new cat is a 14-year-old girl, just months older than my previous cat, is visually impaired, and had feisty, self-protected guard up at the time. If I went by the notion that the pet chooses us, I conclude that she wouldn't want me. But I was so adamant that it was what my cat wanted me to do. I had her on a 7-day trial due to her grumpy temperament. She was as difficult as expected. I decided to keep her nevertheless, thinking that we both need some love somehow. After I firmed up with the adoption fee, she all of a sudden became a lovingly purr machine. I totally believe that she was sent to me by my late cat to teach me about loving someone unconditionally, as this new cat isn't as easy going as he was. I have to do things by her terms. I can't force kisses or cuddles on her like I could with him. I still miss him daily and I still cry. It's only been 3 weeks since I lost him, but having her really helps restore some routines which tragically disappeared after my cat died. The problem, though, is that some friends don't want to make peace with my idea of adopting her, or my belief that my late cat sent her to me, or that there's a magical thing behind her sudden positive personality change. I don't need them to understand my reasons and my decision. I just wish that they would accept how I came to my choice and that I was having a hard time. One even asked me to reconsider taking her due to potential vet bills and suggested opting for a healthy kitten instead. But it isn't about having another cat to fill the emptiness. The idea that I am seeing and following signs from my late cat, that I am on this spiritual journey, seems so incomprehensible to them. I really hope that I won't lose friends during my through my grief process. Anyway, I just wanted to share to everyone that grief is very difficult. And if we're not careful, the guilt will always appear because we're the one making a decision on our pet's behalf, whether we want them to go peacefully or we want them to keep fighting. I now accept that it was his time to go. My spiritual quest still goes on. I light up a candle at his shrine every night, and I still hope that he'll visit me in dreams soon. Lastly, a heartfelt thanks to everybody at the Pet Loss Companion once again for discussing this one disenfranchised grief. Thank you for being there for me. Your podcasts validate my feeling, make me feel that I'm not alone, and some of the listeners' stories have me welled up and cried along, which is a good relief from this emotional turmoil. I truly appreciate all of the episodes and discussions, and that's from Tanya.
Wow. Well, there's so much there, and the first thing that I just wanted to underline was when she said that she was a complete wreck. She skipped meals. She stopped
Mm-hmm.
necessary hygiene. She forgot how to live.
Yeah.
And what she describes is that similarity between grief and depression. And she's describing what would be really evidence of clinical depression if it were unrelenting. And it's something to note that there's this similarity, and the difference is if you can never find moments of brightness, if you never smile, if it was absolutely unrelenting, then you really deserve to see and need to see a clinician. But I just wanted to point that out because the similarities between normal grief and clinical depression are many.
That's right.
And so,
Because you can be depressed reactively, right? So
yeah,
if you have a loss
yeah,
of any kind, you could have those symptoms. But
yep,
you're right, there are different nuances between that and a major clinical
yeah.
depression.
And then the other thing that it was just so powerful about this letter from Tanya for me is the notion of spirituality
Mhm.
and the way that she trusts what she's experiencing. So my way of thinking about spirituality is that which connects us to the world outside of us in a way that's positive and meaningful and purposeful. And it can take many different forms. And our relationships with our animal companions, with our friends, with our family members, with our loved ones are really core to our spirituality because they are almost by definition our connection to that which is greater than ourselves, that which
Mhm.
surrounds us, that which gives us joy and meaning and all that stuff. And so this is a woman who understands that really,
That's right.
really powerfully. She understands it and she trusts it. She trusts
She
what
did
she's
trust.
getting from this larger circle outside of herself. And she trusts what she understands, the messages, the gut feelings that she's getting,
The
the
signs she got,
the
right? She got
signs, yeah, the
multiple signs.
experiences of feeling her deceased pet near her and on her bed and other
Mhm.
ways that and and it's very beautiful, and it's also something that she has the fortitude to hold on to those messages despite the fact that there are people around her
Or
who are
say,
telling
"Are you
them to
crazy?"
yeah, to discard them. And one of the messages that I'd like to give to listeners tonight, and we've talked about this before, is it is never a good idea to judge for other people to judge what we're experiencing, the meaning that we are taking from what we're experiencing. It will only put some distance between us and them. It's generally meant to be helpful, but when somebody says something like, why don't you adopt a healthy kitten instead of this cat, which clearly has extraordinary spiritual meaning for her,
That's
is
right.
such a unfortunate decision. Let's put it that way,
No,
because
and I get it. And
it's
also the vet bills. Oh my God.
yeah,
First of all, how amazing that she's taking a 14-year-old cat
yes,
that has
yeah,
issues, right?
yeah,
And then for her, I mean, understand, I mean, she's her friend's looking out for her financial, situation. But
yeah.
really the vet bills, that's hard. I mean, obviously she knew what she was
She knew
doing.
what she was doing, so she made a decision
Yeah.
about that. And here's somebody second guessing it and saying, why don't you just get a healthy kitten? And meanwhile, Tanya is experiencing what feels like an extremely powerful, almost like what I'm taking away from this. It's a transformative gift. This new relationship,
Yes.
because she reads it as not every relationship is what is my way, like all the time. Like this other cat was extremely malleable, like she could pick it
Mhm.
up and she could pick him up and nuzzle him and hold him, and which is actually in my experience a little almost a little rare with cats. My experience with cats is generally that they want to be held and loved sometimes, but not
And then
always.
they're, wow, get away.
Not always, and there are limits. Like my current animal companion, who happens to be a cat, is, she's kind of temperamental. She'll come up and she's like headbutting me and rubbing against me and whatnot. And I'll start scratching her behind her neck. And, but I got to be watchful because at a certain point, she may decide that she's had enough very abruptly, in fact.
And then she's gone.
and she's gone, or she might
We'll
even
make it known.
me. And, she's not going to try to hurt me, but she's going to set a limit. and so this cat,
she worked with her, right? I mean,
yeah,
she knew going in
yeah,
that it's amazing. It's almost transitional. She's taking this cat that had some issues and was difficult, and
yeah,
she knew that, but it was a transitional object in some ways because she really believed that her cat said, "You need to do this.
yeah,
This
yeah,
cat really needs you."
yeah.
I think that that's just so amazing.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's it's an important story. I think it
Mhm.
really is, because it also shows you the expansive generosity
Mhm.
that she has, and that I I just think is admirable,
Yes.
because not everybody can do that. And I'll tell you that I know you can do that. Like, you take in
Yes, I
animals
do.
that
I do take
need
it before
extraordinary
Lord.
measures. I don't have that in me. It's not something that feels like it fits for me.
Mhm.
And so I admire you and Tanya, people who can and do that, because otherwise animals like this cat who she adopted might not have a future.
Right,
And
that's right.
your
Very
dog who has the seizure disorder, and your other dog who has
yes,
the
the
paraplegia,
paraplegic.
and I mean, this is remarkable stuff. So
Well,
hats
we
off to you.
appreciate that. But it also talks to Tanya about Tanya's, you know, she was so connected to
Mhm.
the cat that died, right? It was her and him.
Yeah,
Lived alone with him. They were a couple, they were comrades, they were companions. And so in doing this, I think it made her feel really good because she really believed that he sent this cat to her. And so we need to talk a little bit about, though, how to deal with people that mean well,
yeah, that's
but
true. That's a good point.
they don't.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
want to,
yeah,
and I think that they feel that they're saying something that might be helpful, but that's not sometimes the case.
yeah. Because she actually says, "I really hope that I won't lose friends
Right.
through my grief." And I mean, on the one hand, what I think immediately, my reactivity to that is, well, if you were to lose them because they couldn't dictate to you
What you should
what
do.
you should do, then maybe that's an okay thing. I mean, we want the people in our lives to be respectful toward us, right? And so that's if somebody were actually to move, like to disconnect from her because she didn't follow their guidance, well, that's an incredibly controlling posture for that person to take.
And
And
we really hope that Tanya's friends, you know, come back to her or begin to understand where she is, or she can connect to them. I mean, it's their relationships and she connected to them in maybe a different way. But, part of being a friend is not to necessarily have very strong, you know, um, opinions in the context of dictating what someone,
right,
especially in grief.
yeah,
Hey, listen, she has
yeah,
a shrine, right? She lights the
yeah.
candle.
She
I
lights a
think that's
candle.
wonderful.
Routine that keeps her, that signifies her connection
Hmm.
to her cat who she lost. And another thing that it's really important for friends to do is to not feel like their way of experiencing their spirituality is the only way or is the better way. And it's just very important, I think, for people to respect one another. Obviously, there's many different ways that we can understand and practice our spirituality. And it is a very closed mind, in my opinion, when somebody says, well, it's my way is the only way. and
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 there are
so
unfortunately a lot of people
there's
out
a
there.
lot of people like that. Of course, we're seeing that in the public sphere way too much these days in our country.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, hopefully, if she is experiencing what she also describes as I think magic,
Yeah.
well, then that's great. That's the way I
Yeah.
look at it. You know, it may not be the way some of her friends experience it, and they may feel like it's hard for them to believe or understand. But then that's what friendship
It's that.
includes, is saying, well, that's not the way I experience it, or that's not the way I see it, and that's not my view, but I respect the fact that that's the way
That's yours.
you are experiencing it, and more power to you. Like, you can be supportive of a person whose experience of divinity, of faith, of spirituality is very different than yours. Let's hope, right?
Right. We all are not alike. And
No.
that's to what our beliefs and morals and
Yeah,
thoughts, feelings. So, and that's okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And like, there are some people who will say things like, I'll digress a little bit. I have a friend who has four cats, and this friend is thinking that they may get more. They're thinking they may get one or two more, and wondering, is there something wrong with that?
Right.
And
No,
so we had a conversation about it. By the way, the people who I work with to train my dog have five dogs, and then they have a shelter in their home, so they're always fostering other dogs. And the way that I think about this, and I talked with this friend about it, is, look, can you afford it? Is there room? Is your home clean? And all of these animals live in sanitary conditions, and they live in pristine in a big house in pristine conditions.
that's right.
So,
They can
so
do whatever they'd
yeah,
like, right?
so like, what would be wrong with it aside from other people maybe having judgments?
Well, especially
So,
about the cat ladies, right? I
right,
mean,
right. You
there
know, and
is
of course, I showed him my mug that says "Crazy Cat Lady."
and and unfortunately there are some people who are, I don't know on what dimension they are mentally, but they do have a lot of animals, and unfortunately sometimes they are not taken
Yeah,
care
and that's a hoarding
of.
situation.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
a collector, right? And
Mm.
then and the distinguishing factor between that experience and what my friend was talking about, and what the wonderful people who are doing the training with me and Hildy, and sometimes board her, do, is that they have very well thought out limits,
Good.
and their hearts are big enough, and their home is big enough, and their financial security is solid enough that there is nothing bad or problematic for the animals, and that the animals are having a wonderful life.
That's right.
And so that the idea that there's judgment about how many you can have, and coming from other people, the way I think about that, and the way I think about spirituality and many aspects of life, is that's not for you to that's not for another person to decide, and it's not for another person to issue demeaning comments or judgment. We have our own way, we have our own paths in this world, right?
That's right.
And sometimes they're quite different.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
It's like grieving. I mean, everyone
yeah,
grieves differently.
exactly.
They
Yeah,
you have people that are very intense, and then they kind of are able to move through that. You
yep,
have people that are still grieving almost as much in 6 months or 9 months. I mean,
yep,
yes, it can become complicated, but but it's really being very supportive of anyone who has that. I mean, a lot of times, remember when people would come to the group and people was and their loved ones would say, "Are you still going to that group?"
Yes,
You
yeah.
know,
And there'd be quite a bit of friction sometimes.
and, yeah.
And
It's helpful. That's
yeah,
why they're there,
yeah,
because again, we have the animal loss can be somewhat disenfranchised because there are people out there who just don't understand
they
it.
don't understand it. And not only do they don't understand it, they seek to impose judgments based in their view on others. And that's where you get into trouble. It's one thing to not understand it and say, behold the difference, and to actually perhaps learn from that, that we go through this process differently.
Yeah,
And that's the way that we gain wisdom as we move through our own lives. We see that people experience loss differently,
I
and
do.
there's no right way and there's no wrong way to do it. And yeah, so
And we
it's
have
so
different
important.
cultures, right? We have a lot of people from different countries who listen
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
podcast, and every religion or every culture have different ways of grieving. And so, and it's just having the ability to have your own journey, and it's hard, and it doesn't feel good, but there are people out there that are supportive.
yeah. So we want to really thank Tanya for this story, because it opened up a really important discussion, I think, about spirituality and about differences,
Mm-hmm.
and about judgment, and how it just doesn't help to impose judgment on, so many times people feel like they're trying to be helpful by telling others what to do.
Well, because and part of that is that they may not be comfortable with the pain. They may
Yeah,
not be
yeah,
comfortable with their own journey.
yep,
It may bring up
yep,
um,
good point.
issues for themselves
Yep,
that are awkward or uncomfortable, and so we have to recognize that too. Although it doesn't feel good for the person who is grieving to have someone kind of saying, "Well, I don't understand, or why are you doing that? And you should do
yeah,
this." So
yeah.
it's all about that grieving, and we all still
and
don't do it
and
do it really well.
and healing, and doing it in whatever way suits you, and having, hopefully, a circle of love and support that sustains you through it. So again, I guess we're not going to get to Alyssa. We'll
So we'll
save
get to you next week, dear.
we'll save her for next week. And
But
she does
thank
have
you
she has a
again,
great story that
Tom.
it'll be helpful for people to hear. And again, we thank Tanya greatly
Yes.
for this.
Everyone, take care. Hope you stay cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, Nancy. Bye bye.